Welcome out to Three Martini Solution Podcast, episode 7. We have a special guest today, Kyle, Jessica's husband. How was everybody's week? Jessica, Kyle, how was your week?
Why do you ask loaded questions, Ryan? Saturday. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
See, this is why Kyle can't participate. He has
the
to
kids?
be in charge of that
No, I mean, everybody can get involved. Why not?
nonsense. It was, a week in May.
Jessica's video is laggy
That's
because
pretty much all I can report on it.
Jessica can't report on anything. Her video's laggy because we can't afford internet, good internet. I think there'll be a time in the future where,
I pay a lot for internet.
I know that's the problem, right? Everybody pays a lot for internet, and still we have not great internet everywhere. But I think even now, if I'm looking for a house, I'm going to probably choose a house that has better internet than over one that has crappy internet. True,
Yeah.
not true.
True. This is
True.
the best internet for me to be on, right?
This one? Yeah.
All right. Well,
True.
while Jessica and Kyle are
True.
figuring out their riveting internet issues, Casey, how was your week?
Pretty good. Just like Jessica, a week in May.
It was definitely solidly. Nobody could dispute a week in May. But over this past week, we released the last podcast episode. Casey and I did a special podcast for the first 2 episodes of Under the Banner of Heaven. Amber Heard took the witness stand in the Johnny Depp trial.
I need to go on record. Jessica?
Yes.
Did you notice?
What? No.
She cried.
Oh.
Told you. Called it.
Yeah.
Did she cry or did she?
I mean, there are people literally finding clips from books that she's clearly memorized to tell stories. Like I like from my attitude last week, I can hardly even watch it anymore. Now it's so put on. Like I've completely swung the other direction where I just can't take it anymore. And it's probably her, like I was all in it when Johnny Depp was in the stand, but now I can hardly listen to that whining. Oh, I want to slap her.
Did you see that one? Did you see the one clip
Or is
where it
that
looks
too
like
strong
she's
of a
doing a bump of
statement?
coke?
Ooh.
The what?
Did you see that one clip where it looks like she's doing a bump of coke? And I saw a thing where they slowed it down, and I think she's picking her nose with her pinky. That's what I think it is. Which I mean, it happens to anybody, but it does.
And where do you
definitely
put
look
cocaine? On your pinky?
Hey, they say it's on like all of our money, so it's probably on her pinky. It's not her fault.
Well, if I were going through a trial with Johnny Depp, I would probably need cocaine too. Let's just be honest.
That way, everybody should be on cocaine.
Total
Why isn't
fair
everybody
statement.
on cocaine?
Right.
All right, so well, let's talk about that while it's up. Anything else besides her, Jessica doing a 180 on Amber Heard, and
Oh my
maybe
gosh,
she was picking her
man.
nose, maybe she was doing coke.
No, I was just obsessed with it and like couldn't get enough of it. And it was like my guilty pleasure, or all of our guilty pleasures, but such reprieve from real life. And now it's just hard to watch. It's like, I mean,
it's crazy.
I can't believe that she didn't get better guidance on how to like take it back a notch. Like there was so much leading to her taking the stand that she's this liar, that she's going to fabricate. And she's only played to that. Like she's laying it on so thick that it's just hard to believe any of it. And I gotta imagine she's paying a pretty penny for her legal team, and not one of them told her like take it down a notch. Like it's not landing the way you want it to land. It's just crazy to me.
When I see
start seeing that clip of. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
That clip, the clip of when she's telling the story about her dog stepping on the bee, like her facial reactions to like that story. I'm like, what is happening? This is like a bad B movie actress acting way over the top.
Yeah,
Whoa. She's not a B movie actress. She was in Aquaman. Thank you very much.
that true.
And I hear she's
an A-level movie.
It's in the next one.
She's in the next one too?
10 minutes. 10 minutes.
Wow.
Or so my sources in the media say, and they never lie. The media never.
Well, that's before they were editing, I'm sure. You know how these things evolve. Is there an edit of the film where she could be there in 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Well,
after all this went out, like Johnny Depp was edited out of movies a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, isn't that crazy how they can go back? Like, even you see that, like, when somebody gets fired off of like a reality show, and how they can go back and edit it so much to essentially remove that person from the season, shows how much editing actually goes into that, and how, you know,
none of us is a main character.
Telling the story you want on reality shows.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
That's true.
Yeah, well, I go back to what Casey had said last episode about it. Is as an attorneys, you sometimes say you take the clients as you receive them sometimes, and sometimes it gets to the point where you're like, okay, I can't work with you anymore. But yeah, I'm sure the amount of money she's paying for them to put up with her BS makes them put up with her more than maybe they would otherwise. But yeah, you look at some of that. You look at some of that and you think, how well, I agree with Jessica. The first thought is, didn't anybody tell her not to do that kind of crazy crap? And then the second part is, well, maybe they did, and she's not listening to any of it.
Yes. The latter is probably true.
Yeah. That's my guess anyway.
So you do the best you can.
Which is hilarious in this case.
I still love watching Johnny Depp's legal team, because like when she's just falling apart, like for them to try to like soften their cheers and excitement is just crazy. She said something about Kate Moss, and I think they were very excited about that because Kate Moss says it's not true. And so like on the stand, they can kind of catch her in something here. Who knows if that means Kate Moss is going to make an appearance. But like if you could have seen Johnny Depp's lawyer, he was like, yes, yeah, like he was so excited, like they just got a touchdown. I was like, good lordy, this is just.
Well, there's a lot of times in those situations you're like, well, we can't bring this in unless they say this, and then they say it, and you're like, ching, yep. Let's go.
Yep.
That door just got open.
Yeah, there it is.
Your Honor, I didn't open this door.
She said it. We followed up.
It. What are we gonna do? Yeah. So but too much of that, the judge could say, "Stop it, knock it off," because it's essentially testifying without testifying. But yeah, fun stuff.
Yeah, the judge's facial expressions are gonna live on for eternity. Like you can tell, it's just like this look of being completely dumbfounded. Like, is this my life? And is this really happening right now? Like that is the consistent facial that I'm taking away.
Yeah.
What? Nothing. Okay.
Nothing. All right. Well, so once upon a time which was about 7 days ago, we talked about doing Under the Banner of Heaven and said, yeah, let's, watch and talk about it. Unfortunately, the other night when Casey and I sat down to watch it, because we're the two most important people on the earth, and didn't wait for anybody else, we didn't get the reactions of Jessica. And then we invited Kyle along because Kyle did not grow up in the church, probably knew nothing about Mormons. I'm guessing, maybe he could tell us if I'm making that up, until he married Jessica, married into our family, which has a long history in Mormonism. Right, Kyle? What did I get right? Yeah. What did I get wrong?
You got most of it right.
Of course.
No background in Mormonism until I had met Jessica. And then I do know some through podcasts and whatnot of like the history of the Mormon religion and kind of the trials and tribulations that they'd gone through and some of that historical stuff, but not much on the religious side. So this was a very interesting show. And
Okay,
Jessica's a very interesting person to learn from.
Oh, taking them to our family reunion.
So,
The culture shock.
I love this. All right. So let's spend a little time on this. Now, Casey, I also want to talk about large group gatherings, which I think fits in perfectly with the talk about Mormonism.
That's all we do.
That's all we do.
Large gatherings with food is foundation.
If you need to cook for 150 to 250 people and you're losing your mind, call the local Mormon church.
Get the sisters over.
Get the sisters over. They'll help you through it. They'll get you there.
Well, one of the episodes from Under the Banner of Heaven, one of the sisters is like, Sister so-and-so, I'm going to have to open my address book and call the brethren into service. In her best little church lady voice. It was, I was like, here we come.
All right. Well, so Casey, I know Casey and I particularly because we have done big we've catered, basically we've been a 2-person catering crew for lots and lots of people before for church events. And I've done them outside of the church for other things. I think Casey and I would argue that we could do it just as well as the sisters, if not better.
Hands down. Oh my gosh. This might tie it all together, but my mom makes a really good dinner roll, right? She can also, break that off to cinnamon rolls. Like it's kind of her thing. She knows how to get dough to rise perfectly, but she'll make them massive. Like one dinner roll could essentially feed a family of 4. So they're big and they're hearty. And I'll never forget, like we had some big thing at the church and then we had the missionaries over for dinner later in the week. And they just started in on those dinner rolls from the church get together with zero knowledge that my mom did that until she turns around with a plate of the dinner roll. Oh my gosh. If you could have seen those missionaries' faces, I was like, I'm never missing a missionary dinner again. This is the best day of my life. And then them backtracking, like, we're talking about it because they were good. Oh, were you? Because they're so good? Oh, I don't know, brother.
Liars.
Oh my gosh. So good.
That is awesome. That's so funny.
One of the toughest things about being a missionary is going over to people's houses for dinner and not putting your foot in your mouth. I did it all the time. All the time. And you just like,
I would have been sent home.
What are you going to do?
The missionaries have been notably absent in Under the Banner of Heaven.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I've only seen the first 2 episodes and like just the beginning of the 3rd, but yeah, how many episodes is this? Does anyone know? Is it like a 6 episode? Because they're long.
7.
They're an hour. 7. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the first thing in the show when you were watching it and you were like, oh?
How triggered I am. I don't know. I'll let you go first. I'm a ball of mess around it.
Okay.
Had a bird fly into our giant window.
Maybe I just need to. I'm feeling really freaked out about that really fast.
I feel like we're having signs, guys. I don't know if we should have this conversation.
Okay.
That is one of the signs of the apocalypse. So good
I'm
job,
so
Jessica.
happy you're here to see that. That was so crazy if you didn't validate that really just happened.
Well, it was funny because when there's a big loud noise in Zoom, it quiets it. And so that bird hitting your window, all of a sudden your volume dropped.
It's Big Bird.
Literally Big Bird. He's stopping by.
A really dirty window. It's not like my windows are, beautifully cleaned and invisible.
Well, that was a dumb bird. Maybe it's better. Evolution's like, you're out.
You're out of here.
Oh my gosh. If you fly
What's your take, Kyle?
Yeah, Ty, what's your take?
Like the thing that stood out the most for me in the first episode was I forget his name, the dad, the patriarch, and how I felt like at that gathering where they cleared the rocks and then he did his speech and all that, so embodied like religious people as a whole, like that whole, like, I'm in control, I'm gonna feed off of knowing something and trying to give you inch by inch and then take it away from you. When he kept looking at his one son who seemed like would be the best fit to run the farm or run his business, and then looked away and gave it to Dan instead of him. Like, it's that kind of
vice versa. Didn't give it to Dan, gave it to Ron. I feel like that's the biggest thing that I've gone back to be like, okay, now he's got a beard. Which son is that?
Dan is the oldest, and Robin was his helper, I thought. Is that not
right?
No,
So he
thought,
didn't give it to Dan, who would have been like the oldest boy.
No, I think Ron is the oldest, and then Dan is the one he gave the chiropractic business to.
And Robin was his right hand, but then the one that like the mom took into the like shed and like comforted wasn't that one. Thought he should have been in control of business.
Yeah.
You guys froze up, but
that kind of like authority and wanting to like, huh?
No, you guys just froze for a second. Go ahead.
Oh, but like wanting that power and control and being able to like give and take away from people, I think is that is how I view
like organized
religion. Is that like it's not, I don't get pleasure from doing good things. I do pleasure from like making people work or letting other people see what I do. And so like being able to give and take away that power, like getting his whole family to clear the rocks as a sign of, look how important we are, not as I want to do good things to help people. It's, I want to do good things so that other people know how good we are and how important we are as people.
But yeah, I agree with you. And I think that scene where the dad says, we're Lafferty's, this is, where people come to us for help. I think that's part of what you're saying, right? But at the same time, it's like a double-edged sword, because this guy does really need help, apparently. And they do step in and do something that otherwise couldn't be done. So it's kind of
right. I mean, it's not, you're right. Yeah, it's not the end result that's bad. It's kind of like the reasoning, the intent behind it, as opposed to doing it to help him. He's doing it so that his family can get that praise, or he can hold it over that guy's head later on and say like, hey.
Well, they were like, he makes mention that him and his neighbor didn't always get along. So like him coming to him in a time of need might have also just been a factor. But I mean, I think service is a really important part of the church. Like it was instilled in us for sure. And while I am definitely not part of the church anymore, nor do I have interest of being part of any organized religion, that like service is a big piece of my character. Like it's in the work that I do, it's in like the act, like who I am as a friend. I like, so acts of service, I do think the intent is to be serving one another and doing it selflessly and without recognition or praise, because you get that, intrinsic kind of reinforcement of helping out, your fellow man. But I do also think it's a slippery slope to can be all consuming, in the sense that, if it's not of your own free will to do it and you're being forced to do it, it takes that natural reinforcement out of it. So I don't know. For me, like from a woman's perspective, the role of women that certainly I think this show maybe takes it to the extreme, but kind of showing how she really sought a career in being a news reporter and how taboo that was and how many things. I mean, but that's not just true for the church. That's just kind of a plight women have had in, I mean, we're still asking for equal pay in some industries. So there's, I think that's heavy, but like it gives me this strong Handmaiden's Tale vibe the more we're getting into it.
Current life.
Well, it's like what
our current, yeah.
I think it's what Kyle said. You know, you can take, I think religion and service can be really great things, but they're tools, right? They are tools that can be really great, and they can be vehicles for people to be brought together, to build community, to help one another, to grow closer together. But they can also be tools that are very oppressive, right? Mm-hmm. If someone uses those same things, like the service that was rendered for that man was really great, and everyone came together, and they made it fun, and they had lemonade, and everyone came together and stuff. But then you started to see the cracks when you saw all of a sudden it was the men touching the rocks, the women bringing the lemonade, and they stood behind it. And then when Brenda walks up and starts picking up the rocks, people were like, the ladies were like, uh-oh, and like the guys were like, and you could see that a little bit. But then you also saw, the Lafferty patriarch. Then it's the, let me interpret this event for you. And then he interpreted in that I'm going to use this as evidence of the patriarchal order that I need. And you're right, like that exists in all sorts of patriarchal religions and societies and organizations, whatever. It was.
Doesn't he say to Alan, like as he's kind of like announcing their senior mission? Is that what they call it? And he's kind of giving each son their kind of marching orders. And he just says to Alan, you've got your hands full.
Well, he's
a really subtle, not so subtle way of being like,
that's subtle control. But he's also, the other thing that he's doing though, is he's really trying to remind them that our family is biblical. Right? Mm-hmm. He's doing the whole blessing the sons like they do in the Book of Mormon, like they do in the Bible, right? Especially the choosing the younger son over the older son or whatever, to remind the older son which side of the bread is butter's on one hand, and to exert a little bit more control, which comes out in episode 3 too. But then flipping it, that's very biblical, right? That happened a lot in the Old Testament, and that's a big part of that story. So I think he's also trying to show that he is just as biblical a patriarch as any of the patriarchs in the Bible, in the Jewish Bible, and that you find there. So which is also very, I think that's very Mormon, finding those connections to especially Old Testament type figures and that kind of way of thinking, and making those ties and saying, hey, that was true then, and it's also true for us now. We are as entitled to those like spiritual blessings, miracle, whatever the things. You can hear them talking about that and seeing themselves in that light.
Okay, so
what's the detective's name? That's I think Paiute. I think they say it.
Taba.
Why would he go into that forest alone? Why? Well, the whole time I'm just like, it's dangerous. Get some backup. That was the only part. I love him. I think he's going to be one of my favorite characters. But I was like, man, why do they got to send him out there by himself?
I thought he was going to make a smart choice after he fell into like the tiger pit, like halfway. I was like, oh, now he's going to turn around and go get more people. He's like, nope, just going to get my revolver. Trusty revolver.
I'm going to walk right up to the front door that has a hole in it. Yeah.
I knew, like, this is a television show. Like, because that's the where you scream at your television, don't do it! Don't do it! Don't go in there! And of course he has to, and you're like, and like,
it's a cabin in the woods. Come on.
I am the jumpiest person. Jumpiest. You always want to watch movies with me. I have to sit like this because I'm like going, even if I know it's coming, like I knew the jump scare was coming, right? And as I'm watching it, and all of a sudden, here comes the barrel of the gun out of the hole. I was like, oh, like that's just me.
Gotcha.
Like I am buying whatever they're selling. Like, oh
my gosh, that's too funny.
Well, I do want to hear more from Kyle about just generally. Was there a lot of stuff in there that you didn't know about? Were you like confused? Because Casey and I speculated I don't know if it was on when we were talking in the last podcast that we did about it or not, that if you didn't grow up in the church, you might get lost because they don't spend a lot of time explaining some of the things that I think there's probably a lot of nuance to.
No, not really. Like I said, I've listened to some of the history of the Mormons coming from New York into St. Louis and Missouri, and then kind of like building up their own kind of settlements in several places, and then kind of some of the run-ins they've had with the American government trying to create their own country and state and that type of thing. So I've kind of got some of that background of the history of it. So when they went back to some of those flashbacks, I kind of had an idea of what was going on and where some of that has led into the future and where they get their own Mormon army and like try and revolt against the U.S. government. So I had some of that background. So I was not lost by some of that stuff, but more just not growing up in like a religious family, just seeing some of the ways that it seeps into everything, and how at the very first episode when the police officer when Taba was in with the prisoner, is it Alan is the husband?
Yeah.
When he's in there and he lets Taba interview him, and as soon as he starts talking about the fact that he's lost his faith, he jumps into that room and kind of shuts him down. Seeing that is, I guess, something I never have seen. Like, I have not been part of that religious family or religious community where how much that religion is more important than your earthly self is not as important as your godly self. And as it got more into episode 2, where they start talking about the godly rules and I follow God's law and humans' law has gone the wrong way, and that whole kind of side of things, I hadn't thought of that as much as a religious thing, but more of that what we had years ago in Montana, where they didn't want to pay taxes and they were just the sovereign citizens type of idea of you don't get to control me type of thing, but with a different spin on it. And that was a very interesting thing to see.
Yeah, when that scene where the Pyrie comes into the room when he says he's lost his faith, so it's one of those things we did talk about because to me, I'm like, I've never seen somebody do. I didn't want to expect that to really happen. It seems a little bit outside the thing, but the sentiment is probably true, and because I do think it's interesting that you said it illustrates how that character or that who's representing, I think, the religion at that point puts the things of God over the things of the earth. And they do. And I think that's what that scene is there to illustrate it, even if that scene is kind of like extreme, something that probably wouldn't really happen. Yeah. But it proves its point, obviously. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how about the way because this is kind of one of the things I wanted to know from somebody who didn't grow up in the church, haven't been in Utah, did you feel like the way that the Mormons were acting in there was there for an effect in the TV show? Did it ring true that this is kind of, or have you met people that would act like that or something like that? How realistic did those people seem to you?
Which people?
Well,
like the Mormons, like
the
how
Mormons,
like
Pyrie, Pyrie, his wife, Brenda,
how they
and
interact
her family.
with like his mother, the Relief Society that comes over.
Yeah, I mean, from the small things that I've seen, I would see, like, was it episode 2 where he can't make it to the party, and so he calls in like the Relief Society to come in. I mean, like, I could 100% see the only female Mormon I know totally doing that. Like your mom. Like, I could see, like, something happens, your mom is like, I could see her jumping into action and cooking and doing stuff, and and then also at the end of that call also rang totally true of like, so I heard that there may be a problem with the Laffertys. Can you tell me any information? Like, always trying, like, picking out stuff, and I don't know if it's I doubt it's a strictly religious thing, but like that's something that I've always seen in religion of way more gossip because you can't talk about things.
Okay. Well, you
out in the
guys,
open, and so everything that you talk about is whispers around.
yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I think that I'm really interested. I've watched episode 3 at this point. We'll have to set up a time to just talk about episode 3 because I think if you guys haven't watched what we posted already for the first 2 episodes with Casey and I thought the first episode was a little clunky. I didn't find it as interesting, which is why I thought they released 2 at the same time, is because then you can get right into the second one, which kind of moves things along. If there was a active, quote, good Mormon watching those first 2 episodes, I can see that Mormon checking out on episode 3.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So,
it takes a turn.
but we'll save that. We'll save that for a whole discussion about it, because I think it takes this commentary on Mormonism from kind of an edgy place to full on. Here it is, folks. And
I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
What? And I
can't imagine the LDS. The what?
No, go ahead.
Sorry,
I was just going to say uncomfortable is the key word that I would associate with episode 3.
Yeah, I can't imagine the church is very excited about this at all. I mean, there's probably no way they're excited about the book in general. So they
had 3 statements about the book when it first came out.
Really?
Which you don't comment too much. I mean,
yeah.
If you notice, it's interesting because if you read, and I think there's a couple reasons for it, right? So Krakauer's book in 2003, it's really close to 9/11. He made very distinct links to that. And he really conflates a lot of the different branches and fundamentalist Mormon, like he conflates like the FLDS, which the Laffertys were not FLDS, but he uses that a lot. And so he conflates a lot of them. And the church has spent a really long time, 100 years maybe, trying to distance itself from that polygamist, like more fundamentalist path, which is when they started doing that, especially in the 30s and 40s, like that's when they started separating, which is when many of these fundamentalist branches broke off because they felt the church had lost its way, because instead of keeping some of its more unique and, controversial like practices and ways of life, they had been moving more towards the the 1950s business person, right? Because you go from the pioneer beard that Kyle's wearing right now to clean shaven wearing a suit type with a white shirt, right?
Yeah.
That they did to kind of integrate into mainstream America, because they really wanted to do that. And so I think that's a part of it, and you can see that. And so whenever those linkages to that early or those other groups like that, then the church is like, oh, that's not us type thing. And so they had 3 statements about it. And so they haven't done anything about this one that I've seen, but I think that's probably true because it makes them very uncomfortable.
Right.
Because again, and counterpose that with when the Book of Mormon musical came out, right? They were like, oh yeah, now you've seen the play, why don't you read the book type thing. They had which I think also shows a little difference in perhaps PR maturity from the church in 2003 to,
for sure,
because it's like, you're not going to stop it. So
right.
How can you, because I remember at that time when the Book of Mormon musical came out, like the PR folks from the church came to church and explained how we should react and talk about and like practice with that, and to kind of help Mormons through that, because for all sorts of reasons and stuff, which I think it was very successful, because I think it got the church a lot of press and PR in a good way, because they're like, but I don't know if they're going to do anything with this one. And you'll see when it's episode 3, Jessica, you probably already seen it. You know what we're talking about. I mean, because they're depicting temple ceremonies. And so when you do that, that's going to make Mormons like
furious. Yes. I started to see into the wedding and whatnot. And that was I'm sorry, Kyle. But that was my first indicator. I was like, nothing is more important than the temple to them. Like the temple, you don't speak about, like, it is such a sacred thing that to try to even give a glimpse of to what those ceremonies are is fuel to the fire for them, for sure. And I agree with you. They don't come out and make statements that often. And it's interesting because I think it was in episode 1, talked about clean shaved, right? Like the bad guys having beards, like the church and I was like, that's news to me. I never knew that, but probably back in that generation, clean face and a white shirt and
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
Was the way to go.
If you have certain callings in the church, you can't have a beard today.
Really?
Yep.
I did not know that. Well,
I just remembered one of the things I was most excited for is I finally got to see the magical underwear.
When?
When?
In one of the episodes, she disrobes and she has her magic underwear.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
The thing I was most upset about, that you never had your magic underwear.
So, a funny
Kyle's
thing.
Parents had, because Kyle's parents live right next to the temple that's local here. And so when I started dating him, they had so many questions and they were all about the special underwear. And I was like, guys, I've never had them. I've never, that's a club I just never joined. But still to this day, I wouldn't be surprised if it came up. They'll be like, do your parents wear them in a swimming pool? And I'm like, first of all, they don't go swimming. That's not a religious thing. That's just their weird thing. But so many questions about the underwear. I can't even.
So in episode 3, I know you guys haven't watched it, but there's a scene where Andrew Garfield's character is in a bulletproof vest. And I saw this, was it a tweet or something? They're like, this episode 3 is absolute garbage. You could totally tell that they're making stuff up, because there's no way Andrew Garfield's character would wear a bulletproof vest when he's wearing garments which are going to protect him from the bullets anyway. It was a joke.
What?
It wasn't. They're joking, making fun of the thing, because there's this. I call it Mormon mythology, Mormon storytelling, where their garments are going to protect them from everything. And if you've been in the church any length of time, you've heard somebody stand up in a fast and testimony meeting and talking about how, somebody they knew or them themselves was in some crazy car accident or something, and the only parts of their body that were injured were the parts not covered by garments. And so
it's really related to the tenet of Mormonism that it often blurs the line between temporal and spiritual things, right? Like Kyle, you said, so much of the religious life comes into the everyday life because it permeates all of those things. And also because of that blending, when you have things that are more symbolic, sometimes the line gets blurred about how symbolic that is to how literal that is. And that line gets. And also people, any religious tradition, wants to have faith promoting stories, right? That's what faith is having this belief in things you can't see, touch, feel, whatever. And so there is that part of it, and Mormonism has a unique flavor for sure in how we talk about it. But I think that's that's part of that. That's an outgrowth of, hey, here, because we see the world in a different way. You see that through Pyrie. What's interesting to me, and this is a question sort of for Kyle too, do you see sort of different flavors of Mormonism represented, or is it all just Mormon for you as when you watch the show?
I guess I would say I see two different, I see Pyrie in kind of, as I would say, the prototypical Mormon, his kind of regular Mormon, and then
family guy, hard worker, wants to provide for his family.
And then the Laffertys, I would say, I would associate them more with an FLDS. They're more on the fundamentalist side, when they go into I don't pay taxes because that's not God's law and I'm going to do God's law thing first. And then
kind of make their own rules.
Alan, and then one of the brothers, the construction worker, I would see, like, I would almost call them not Mormon based on like their regular way, but I would say they still consider themselves Mormon, but I would say they're a more contemporary, more modern version of that, where they've kind of relaxed some of the rules on different things, but they still hold true to, I would say, most of that. But like he says himself, like he doesn't consider himself Mormon, but based on that past stuff, I would say they're like a modern or watered down version of Mormonism.
Who said they're not Mormon? The older brother?
No, when he's in prison and he said he's lost his faith.
Alan. Yeah.
Alan. And so I say I kind of see like 3 different levels of Mormonism.
Well, Dustin Lance Black would be very happy to hear that, because he said one of the things he was trying to show was
the different, like the spectrum of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then like I think we got
I
4.
See that even in our own
levels.
Family. Yeah, like there, and I don't know. I think I don't know, like the ability to like have a discussion and be like not even opposed, but just that doesn't follow the exact kind of trend. Like I can have a discussion like with my sister and be like, oh, this was my experience and this is how I choose. And she still loves it. And I can have that back and forth. And I would say she is a very committed Mormon. But then there's other families where I can't have that level of a discussion, and it just can't ever be anything that's on the table.
Like
and so
with
for me, that's
I can't talk to Jessica about Mormonism at all.
True. Brick wall.
But it's so like, I feel like that dictates to me like the level. Just in being able to have a dialogue about my personal experience, or like some are so shut off to that, or going to become so offended or get so self-righteous that it's just not even something we'll put on the table to discuss.
Right.
And
I want to go back because Casey, you were saying that's what Dustin Lance Black wanted to do, is show different versions of it. But I think there's more than 3 that we're seeing. Maybe it's more so in the 3rd episode, but you're going to see an extreme version, which is off the far end. Then the more, I don't know if you'd call the family as we're introduced to them, what is their names? The Lafferty family, and as we're introduced to them, as a more orthodox. Is that a good term, Casey?
That was the term I was trying to use.
Orthodox version of Mormonism, where they're going to really almost search out in the scriptures and the teachings and the words of the prophets of things that they can do to live the gospel even better than the next person. And then there's like a devout but still mainstream version of Mormonism that you see in Pyrie. And then you kind of have Alan, which is more of a loose, I'm in it, but not really in it sort of thing.
Between that, I would put Brenda's family.
Okay.
Yes.
Brenda's family's more middle. Yeah.
A bishop who wants his daughter to not rush into marriage and get an education and live her best life.
I love how carefully they're treating Brenda and her family.
Yes, I do too. I'm glad you brought that up. That's probably the one piece, like when they're driving in the car and she's being a little defiant, like I'm on eggshells, right? Like, oh man, this can go, 2 different directions. And when he makes the joke of like, who wants a room? I was like, oh, okay, I love you. And a good balance to it. I think that's the one thing that like I can still to this day say, like, there was a lot of great things that growing up in that religion gave that influenced my life to today. And I feel like some of the kindest, most generous people that I've ever met in my life have been part of the Mormon religion. So like people aren't bad.
Right.
Like religion isn't necessarily bad,
Some people are bad.
but like that's always
But then some people are
going to
bad.
be. So I think to give some representation of different angles is definitely doing it more justice.
That was one thing I forgot, but as not a Mormon person, like seeing kind of like a lax Mormon was not something that I thought existed. Like,
All right,
I
Kyle,
grew up
you
in like
froze up.
even the kid to the church in the morning, or like across the street from seminary, went to seminary every morning at like 6:30. Like, so even the ones that
Or like Jack Mormon,
yeah, like would drink or like do the things that you're not supposed to do, would still like 6:30 every morning. Kind of seeing that like I'm part of the church, but I'm not really part of the church, was something that as grew up Christian, like I thought that was only a Christian type of thing, like where you're like, oh yeah, I'm Christian. Like, have you gone to church? Like, nope, never gone to church, but I'm still Christian. I'm still Catholic, even though I haven't gone to mass in a year. Kind of seeing a version of that in the Mormon religion. I had not been aware of that, because all of my interactions are either you're whole hog into it and you go to church for 4 hours on Sunday and you go to seminary every morning, or you're not in it. Like you've rebelled against it and now.
Right. Well, I think that what you're describing is like that whether you're either in or you're out is what you would see regularly. I don't think it is that uncommon, but there are, and I think there's a growing number of people that would fall into that category where they're kind of, I don't know, the derogatory or the pejorative term I think that some people would use is a cafeteria Mormon or a cafeteria Catholic or a cafeteria something, where you're just picking and choosing what you want to do and thinking that's good enough. And I think it's said within the Mormon community kind of as a pejorative, even though there's, like I said, there is, I think, a growing number of people who choose to interact with the religion this way. But they would say that that's you're not really Mormon. And in the teachings of the church, at least when we were growing up, was if you're a fence sitter, you might as well be on the wrong side. Right. There was no place for fence sitters. You're either in or you're out. That's the way they used to teach it, at least where we were at growing up. And I think that because that is changing, people are forcing that to change. They're going to say, well, no, I'm going to pick and choose what I'd like to do. I'm going to say no to the things that I don't want to do. And I'm going to show up on Sunday, so you have to deal with me. Whereas in the past, people would say, I'm going to pick and choose, know that they're unwelcome, and just never show up again. But now, because of family relations or whatnot, they're going to church and they're sitting here and say, well, I'm going to be here. I'm not going to participate, or I'm not going to agree with the things I don't agree with, but I'm going to be here and you have to deal with me.
Yeah. I mean,
I wonder if that's almost a sign of like maturity as a religion, like as more and more people are like become a religion simply by their family. Like, oh, my parents were my parents' parents. And so you're kind of born into it and not as much of a choice that you had to battle or your parents had to fight to be and have those rights or have those beliefs. If now it's just becoming like, oh, well, after a couple hundred years, there's enough base of that religion that some people are just going to be, yeah, I have to go because that's my habit. I was raised going to church every Sunday. And so now I just go because that's what I do. And I wonder if that's kind of the natural progression.
Maybe. And I think too, it's an interesting point because as I see all the flavors of Mormonism on the show, like almost all of them are familiar in some way. And I think that many Mormons come by the persecution complex honestly a little bit, because if you think about the early history, right, they had to come together and stick together and really like unite as a people in order to survive, right? Because if you get kicked out of New York and Ohio and Illinois and Missouri, and then end up in the middle of the desert and have to like try and survive, there's going to be trauma associated with that, I think. And I think that's passed down through generations about we need to stick together because the outside world wants to get us, right? And you see that really in the fundamentalist groups is that, because they practice polygamy, different things. And so what they teach is, there's some weird stuff that goes on inside, but the outside is so much scarier. That's why you have to stay, and it keeps people in. But I think as time goes by, like you're talking about, Kyle, and as people sort of live Mormonism or live any religion in like multiple ways and in multiple paths, it sort of maybe, hopefully, opens up multiple paths for people to do that, right? And for people to be welcome. I think it kind of helps. Of course, there's going to be more Orthodox that is going to be they're going to want to door police, right? Like you're a real Mormon, you're not a real Mormon type things. And that comes out in episode 3 too. But at the same time, no one gets to completely decide, right? I mean, Mormons know that, they should know, because for the longest time, so many people say, hey, Mormons aren't Christians, right? And Mormons are like, well, you don't get to decide if we're a Christian or not. If I believe in Jesus, then I'm a Christian. And then, sometimes many of them are trying to out Jesus the, evangelicals in some sort of ways too. But it's like, if they understand that, then in some ways they can't do the same thing and turn around and police Mormonism and say, oh, well, you're not a real Mormon. They can't do to other people claiming to be Mormon what other Christians have done to Mormons about they're Christian. Yeah.
Guys, not to always bring everything back to the Real Housewives, but
no,
the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City's demonstrates this point so beautifully. The one girl that is just Mormon through and through, she's going to use every opportunity to talk about her role within the Mormon church, has a tequila company. First season tries to be very discreet about her consumption of alcohol. By season 2, screw it, but still very adamant that she's a full member of the Mormon church. But I know that she's also not modestly dressed. Part of the garments.
I'm glad you noticed that.
Not that it just protected your body, but it also, for us girls, told us what modest clothing should be. So your garments can never be showing. So it essentially gives you your blueprint of what clothing you can wear, right?
Yeah.
She's a housewife.
So Jessica,
we're not wearing the special underwear, but obviously she's never going to make it into the temple because she doesn't practice the word of wisdom, right? But she still feels comfortable being part of the show, still claiming if the church had a real issue with it, I'm sure that would trickle down to hey, stop advertising something that's not true. So for me, that's some growth.
Yeah, I don't know if that's loaded. There's a lot to talk about there. There's a lot to unpack there. Because I think the church has learned over time not to say anything about it, because if you go out and say something about it, it becomes, you put the spotlight on it rather than just let it pass by. And the people that know really know. And then the people that don't know are like, oh, Mormons aren't that bad. Some people can drink. I think it's a net positive if the church doesn't say anything about it. But if they do say something about it, it's probably going to be negative, the net result. But I think that is interesting that they have that kind of character on the Real Housewives. And I haven't watched it, but maybe I will.
Oh,
I'll see what you're talking about. Kyle, have you watched it? Do you concur?
I can tell you which one's which. I have watched all of them at some point in my life, spending time with my lovely wife. But
he loves the reunions. That's really, and then I give him awesome. Everybody's backstory. It's an event, pretty much here. We might put together a potluck for it.
I'm glad you mentioned potluck. So I'm not going to stop anybody from continuing to talk about Under the Banner of Heaven. I can talk about it all day, but let's talk about potlucks and large events. I don't know if you want to talk it from the standpoint, Casey, of within the church, without the church. I think you can just talk about it generally.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Big events, catering big events, and how we act and interact in those events. You threw one last weekend, right?
Yeah, I did. And so the things that I was remembering when I did this is, the order that you present the food in the line is super important. You don't put the cookies first. That's dumb. Different things like that, like what you have the most of, what you're filling in. But I mean, that's how to throw one. I think in some ways, like throwing a potluck is maybe less interesting than if you're going to a potluck. Because if you think about it, it's dangerous, right? You're showing up to an event with food. Like normally we show up to a restaurant and we're like, hey, are those servers wearing gloves? Hey, did they wear a mask back there? What are they doing? Are they sanitizing everything or whatever? You show up to a potluck, you have no idea what people did in their kitchen. But guaranteed, they weren't wearing gloves and they probably didn't sanitize worth crap. But still, there's that food, right? So I know that when I have gone to potlucks, that you know who to talk to, and you're like, hey, what did you make? Hey, what did you make? And you then deem certain things as safe, not safe, whatever. And then you also are like, tasty, not tasty. And then you kind of have to blend these things, because if something looks really good and you don't know if it's safe or not safe, you might still try it.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that?
Well, I think that what you said is absolutely true. I think everybody does it. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people, probably a lot of people who have organized and prepared these things and see who's bringing what because of their own, like, oh, that person brought that. I'm not gonna have any of that. That's gonna be garbage. And
right.
They don't trust that it is clean. Maybe their kitchen is clean or whatnot. I know many people who don't eat at potlucks and potluck events unless they know who made the specific dishes, like you're saying. So I've seen people show up and not eat anything because they don't know who brought anything. Excuse me. And I'm very choked up, very emotional by this issue. But at the same time, when we've thrown them, like, we haven't because of the pandemic and other issues or factors along the way. Haven't had this big Labor Day weekend barbecue that we did, but we'll have a barbecue for like 100, 150-ish people, and we cook all the meat. We cook a big portion of the sides. We do a lot of work. So, and then a lot of people bring other things, which is great. And we always go through and make sure that the things that are supposed to be cold are cold and the things that are supposed to be hot are hot. But you can't do that 100%. And especially if it gets busy, people just set stuff down. And so it is a little bit of a crapshoot, even if you're controlling a lot of the factors, how good that food's going to be going forward. And I would say we've never had an issue with anybody getting sick that we know of or anything like that. But I've been to some sketchy events where I'm like, I'm just going to eat the store-bought cookies. And those look delicious.
Well, I think Kyle was onto something when he was saying that people are going to church less. That means people are practicing potlucks probably less than they normally would. So potlucks might be increasing in danger. Because if you have more and more amateurs, right? Because if the Relief Society shows up, like those ladies have done that before.
Right.
In a lot of, if Ryan shows up, first of all, I always eat Ryan's enchiladas because they're amazing, or his ribs. Just shout out to those things. But if someone has done a lot of potlucks, they know what to make, they know how to do it, they have to package it, all those kind of things, right? They show up with the crock pot of baked beans, and that's gonna make you happy. But if someone doesn't know, and that contingent might be growing right now. I don't know.
We do a potluck at the end of every year for our wrestling banquet. So end of every wrestling season, everyone gets together and we give out awards. And you can tell people who have done this and have like a casserole, or they have a dish that they bring that will stay good for hours, no matter what the weather is. And then you have some people like, Chick-fil-A sounds good. Here's a party platter of your Chick-fil-A nuggets. Yeah. And then you have some people that bring things that do not hold up well at all. And just, it's like
chips. We don't all want to be grabbing chips out of a bag.
Something with bread and a liquid that's good in the first 15 minutes, but then the 40th person going through the line is just a soup of bread. And you're like, what happened here?
Here's your platter of pre-dipped French dips.
Yeah. Something with whipped cream on top that just melts. You're like, that wasn't good. That was not a good idea.
Right.
know, the most important thing at a potluck is the quality of the paper plate. You have a shitty paper plate, you skimp on the paper plates, that ruins your potluck. You got to have a sturdy plate because you're gonna not offend Kendra, and you're gonna try some of her nasty Jello with nuts and marshmallows in it. You're not gonna eat it, but you're gonna put it on your plate so she doesn't freak out, right? Of course, her cat's hair's in it, but you still, kind of put it off to the side. You need a quality plate that can hold up, and you have enough room where that doesn't touch the other good food you want to try.
By the way, happy couple, that that Jello is actually a salad. Remember, in potluck speak, if it has Jello and nuts and whipped cream, it's a salad. Because if it's a salad,
chunks on the inside, that's the only vegetable I'm getting at that potluck.
Yep.
So I couldn't agree with Jessica more. The plates and utensils do make a huge difference.
Yeah.
But talking about utensils and things, I think a big pet, I don't know if I call it a pet peeve, but I think just a courtesy thing. When somebody is throwing the event, it's very bad form to show up and be like, "Oh, do you have a serving spoon for me?"
Oh, yes. That
right.
Is very...
Come prepared.
Yeah.
Come prepared. Come
prepared. And I mean, and there's been times where I get it if people forget, but there's been times where I've had people ask, and I think they didn't forget. They just expect it.
You to have
and I'm like,
1,000 serving spoons.
I have serving spoons for all my dishes. Let me see if I could scrounge up something for you on the loser end of things, because you have failed as a person by not bringing your own utensils. I mean, come on. It's because you don't always have extras. Now, we've learned over time to just have extras because we know whatever, but that's something that inevitably happens. And I'm like, why do you think of this?
If they bring a serving platter that they want to take home, what's the etiquette on washing it? Do you take home dirty platters, or do you make your kitchen available for everyone to wash their dish?
So I will personally always take my dish home dirty. I'm not going to impose that upon somebody else. Now, if the party's going good and I'm into things and somebody has a dirty dish, if they would like to go into my kitchen and wash it off, they're more than free to, but I'm not going to do it for them. However, if the party's a little slow or I just want a break, I will volunteer to go wash their dishes so I can escape from people.
Perfect.
Can I wash your dish and you not follow me and talk to me anymore?
No, exactly.
Sorry, no one allowed in the kitchen, guys.
You stay and say goodbye to people. I'm going to take your dish and we'll get you on your way.
Yep.
That's funny.
How much can you judge, or do you judge someone by what they bring to a potluck?
Oh, huge. Oh, yeah. No, that I decide who you are as a person by that, for sure. Absolutely. Who doesn't? A psychopath doesn't. So,
well, I don't judge people on if they're a good person or a bad person or not, but I will judge them on, are you invited next time, and am I going to ask you to bring something? So there is that level of, sure, you can come. Oh, you don't need to bring anything. It's totally
don't worry. We've got it covered.
Don't you worry yourself at all. It's so much work. I understand. You just bring yourself.
Yeah,
I know.
Gift enough.
Tapped out with that. You're tapped out with just that.
And here's the thing: if somebody says that to you, don't be offended.
No,
just roll with it.
Never.
I'm getting invited to the party. They like my personality. They don't like my goulash. Great.
That's the most exciting thing for me, because I'm like, that makes my life way easier.
Well, and if I need to back out last minute, I don't feel like I have to drop off a dish to be able to back out, right?
100%.
Options open.
So I host a book club, and it's once a month, and it's always in my house, and I always make the dinner and make everything, because I want to make it as easy as possible for people to come. People can bring a potluck if they want, but they don't have to, because I just am like, look, I'm going to have a full meal ready that's able to have other things added to it or not, because I don't like to think, because like if you assign someone the main dish and they show up late, or all that kind of stuff, then it just, I'm like, no. So it just makes it easier for everyone. Then no one. So like for you, Jessica, you're like, oh, I can back out at any time. I don't have to drop off a dish or anything, right? Because there's never an expectation. That's actually worked really well for me. And I just know I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to have all the stuff ready. And sometimes people bring a lot of stuff and sometimes people don't bring anything. And it's just which it's so nice. It's so chill.
Oh,
and then
having somebody else bring a main dish is like the biggest gamble in the world.
Right.
Like I would say I have a short list of people. Casey is on that list of people who I would say, you're going to bring something for a main dish or part of a main dish, but it is few and far between. Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't be on the list.
Jessica's
no, you are absolutely not on the list, Jessica.
See,
Jessica, feel free to come, and you don't got to bring a thing.
Jessica's great for
kid drinks.
Yeah,
I bring some kid drinks. So I will say it also eliminates this back and forth like group text. Oh, so anything that eliminates the need for us to have any kind of reciprocal back and forth communication about this event. Like if that means I cater it or order out, I much rather do that than have any kind of ongoing exchange about it.
Right. The goal is to make the day easier, not more
interaction before the party.
Right, yeah.
But reserve it for the actual interactions with people.
You got to gear up for those things when you're like the host of a big thing. Like you got to give yourself the pep talk. And it's not that you don't like talking to people, but there's just so much, and you got to be on so much. You just you got to really get yourself mentally prepared to put your best foot forward there. Yeah.
Well, so hopefully none of your friends listen to this, but Kyle just did a little kind of event here with his friends.
All his friends should be listening to it. Why wouldn't they be?
Yeah. What? When did I have friends over? What friends do I have?
The goodbye party, or like the send off for those moving. And so
my friend died and moved to Texas, so never see him again.
So Nolan had a birthday party and Miles had soccer. So I was like, oh, bummer, on mom duty today. So have fun barbecuing and hosting people at her house. I hate it. I love the people, don't get me wrong, but I hate hosting. It's just not in my wheelhouse. And so of course Nolan starts running a fever. It's like, you're going to this birthday party? COVID be damned. We have an exit. I didn't make him go. I was like, shit, it's like 101. I can't really take him to a kid's birthday party. So we quarantined him in the bedroom. I still went to the birthday party.
What?
For a 7-year-old. Just because I was like, I'm committed, guys. I got this present. I got to at least drop off the present. Made it back just in time
Jessica,
to
nobody would have
Miles for soccer.
The people that you were trying to avoid, you could have just said, I'm going to the birthday party and lied to them and then gone somewhere else. You didn't have to actually go to the birthday party.
How do you know she didn't do that? I have no proof or evidence that she actually went to a birthday party. It's a long con, Ryan.
Exactly.
She watches so many cold case murder shows. I don't know what's real and what's not.
It doesn't seem normal for sure, but it doesn't have the ring of truth to it either, right?
My friend, it was a friend's kid, so of course I went and hung out with some girls.
It's pretty good. It's deep in the weeds over here, guys.
It's it may not be the first lie that gets you, but when you have to pile them up, it becomes pretty obvious what's going on.
Whatever. I gifted a bow and arrow set. It's real, guys.
A toy bow and arrow set. It's our go-to gift so parents don't invite us to things. Who are you? We're the one that gave your kids a bow and arrow.
You're welcome. With no gift receipt.
Target doesn't have it, so we're not going to tell you where we got it.
It's a very exclusive kids' toy shop.
So it's Emily and I have been married long enough. I could share this story, but kind of something on that. When we got married, there was so many gifts that we had that, people were not from our registry. They were just random gifts, and they were either duplicates of things that we already had or just stuff that we would never really use. And so we look to return them. And most of the people, I think, kind of going to a wedding expect that maybe they're going to be a duplicate gift. And I mean, if people get their nose bent out of joint because somebody returned their gift for something else, that says more about the person giving the gift than the person receiving it, in my opinion. I don't care if anybody returns a gift I give them. I feel like I've done my duty and I could check off that mark and I never think about it again after I give a gift. But, so we went and we took back, stopped off at Target to say with all of our stuff that we weren't going to need. And they're like, okay, this is ours. This is ours. This is ours. Went through it, returned 90% of the stuff that we got. And then we had the other 10%. And we were looking at these gifts. We're like, where the hell did people get this stuff from? And so for the first few months of our marriage, it was like a scavenger hunt where we go to different stores and like, is any of this yours? And then someone will be like, oh yeah, that one is. We're like, okay, great. And so it took us a while. And eventually after a few weeks, we returned all but maybe 3 or 4 different things that we still have no idea to this day where they came from or what they did, but they got donated to the local, Goodwill.
So did you just
off topic or
you didn't keep any of your wedding gifts?
No, we did. But the ones that were either duplicates or
okay.
stuff that we would never use.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we had a wedding registry, and also it. I think gift cards are kind of like a giving a gift card is it basically says I'm not thinking of you as a person, but I am okay with that. I don't need to be thought of. People don't have to get anything personal from me. I would rather them just
That's
give me the gift
hot
card.
take right there. Wow.
Fine. You don't care about me. That's cool. I probably don't care much about you either. So let's just give each other gift cards. That's fine. I'm good with a gift card. But so doing a wedding gift, I like the option of saying, I'm going to either buy something from your registry, and hopefully they've thought ahead enough to have an option where I could just dump some money into something like a vacation fund or something like that. Because if I can't look through your registry, find something that I want to get you, then I'm going to dump the money that I would have spent in that other thing. And some people just say, give us gift cards or whatever, or if it is a vacation, whatever. If I'll give money all day long. A lot of them
are doing it for their honeymoon.
Right.
You can buy them massages for their honeymoon, and
right.
That's the kind of registry, which is a great trend. I think that makes the most sense.
I was gonna say, what is your thought? I am totally fine with the returning my gift. I don't invest personally in gifts I give people. And then similar to that, thoughts on thank you cards. I find it the most upsetting thing that I am expected to get a gift card or a thank you card for someone who for a wedding gift or birthday gifts for kids. It's just so tedious. If I buy you a gift, then do I put that burden of responsibility onto you to then write me a letter and find a stamp and an envelope that I haven't used stamps and envelopes in 100 years?
I'm so sorry for that, Kyle. I was going to send you a thank you card for appearing on the podcast today.
I need to send you a thank you card for thanking me for appearing on, for allowing me onto your podcast. Where does this thank you card cycle end?
Well, let me tell you this, Kyle. I for a while I've been thinking, when am I going to get Kyle's thank you card for that bottle of whiskey I got him? And now I know it's never.
The best thank you card you can get is I will send you a picture of that empty bottle of bourbon that you gave me as look, it was really good and now it's gone. I appreciated it.
I think that's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, no, I think the thank you card thing is, so we try to do it with our kids just to not all the time, but we try to at least be you should acknowledge that people have done something nice for you, you spoiled little pieces of crap. And so I think it's useful for that. But yeah, no, I agree with Kyle. I'm on Kyle's team here. I don't like sending them out. I don't expect them. I don't want them. I gave it to you because I wanted to give it to you. And if I didn't, I don't. So there you go. We don't need to go back and forth. Don't thank me. Just enjoy it. We're done.
Yeah.
The kids that we don't get a thank you card from is my filter to know that's a mom I can talk to.
You're not going to expect too much.
It's my test.
And it's that same thing with like, I don't need a thank you card. And if you return my gift, that's fine. Like my personal well-being and self-worth isn't tied into the fact that I got you a Target gift that you liked or didn't like.
Right.
I also hate the, hey, come to my kid's birthday party. And then you get the, oh, well, what's your kid into? Everything. They're into everything.
But I'm getting him the worst gift ever because you said he's into everything. So take that.
Yeah. Well, so interesting enough, because we just the royal Emily just accepted an invitation to a birthday party for one of our kids. Texted the mom, says, just a couple of questions. Like, these are the two big questions for us right now. What is the kid into? I wish they would just put it right on the card, and I understand why they don't. So that's not a big deal. But does a parent need to stay with the kid? Those are the two big questions that we need answered ASAP for a birthday party. And the mom, I think, was probably on top of it and thought of it because she's like, okay, he's into this, this, and this, right? Great. All right. So we can go buy a gift that looks like one of those things and we're done. And but if you hear they're into everything, cross them off the list.
Well, I just mean like as in I don't really care, nor do my kids care about presents. Like they're so all about the actual event and their friends being there and eating cake and being silly. Like a big part of our childhood was opening up your presents in front of your friends. That is taboo now. Like you don't even open up your presents at your birthday party, or at least around here you don't. No. And it's such an afterthought. Oh my gosh, Kyle, go grab it right now. Look at this. It's from
what am I grabbing?
That stack of things. This is from Nolan's birthday, and how he didn't get a duplicate, I just saw it out of the corner of my eye, is amazing to me. Look at this spoiled monster. Not one of them is open, guys. His
Jessica, you froze.
Birthday was April 9th. Not one of them even scratched on.
His favorite thing?
Oh, yeah, this is cool.
It's a 3D printed stormtrooper doing a dab. That's his, of all of those Legos, that is his favorite thing. Which is awesome. Like, that's what it should be. Like, that should be super cool to him.
I think in the future, I'm going to say, like, please come and no present is needed.
Just give us money. It's fine.
Yeah. No, we've done that. We've done that before where we're like, no presents. And we've gone to parties like that where the parents are just like, there's no presents needed. We're just going to throw a party. The kids are going to jump around at some place and have fun. And we're done here. Have cake and be done. I think that's great. My kids don't need any more presents. Even when it's around like Christmas time, we were together this last Christmas, but it's just like, even on a Christmas where we're as parents aren't planning on the kids getting anything for Christmas, they still had tons of crap that they played with for like a half a day and then we're done with.
Yep. Right. No, it's true.
Spoiled little, you know what?
Well, speaking of days and things, I need to go order Mother's Day flowers.
Oh, yeah, boys.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Casey, for saying it.
Hold on. I have a question.
Okay.
Do grandmothers count?
Like for what? For anything?
Someone is devastated that I will actually be seeing my mother on Mother's Day weekend.
No.
And she thinks that my mom should go die somewhere.
No. Grandmothers, step down. Step down. If you have grandchildren, your husband celebrates you, not your children anymore. They have another mother to celebrate in their life.
So Jessica's screen paused. I think the mothers everywhere.
I don't think there's enough time today to cover this, Kyle. Why would you have to trigger me like that? Hi.
So I want to hear this later because yes, I actually do send Mother's Day flowers to my mom and my grandma.
Great, but
would be a good son. I appreciate you.
He literally asked me. Would you prefer that I spend time with my mom on Saturday or Sunday? Oh no, please go on Sunday and let me watch our children on Mother's Day, Kyle. Figure it out, big
You
guy.
mean on Mother's Day you'd be a mother?
Oh my God.
See,
Oh,
I
know.
live very far away from family, so all I do is send flowers on the card and stuff. So I got it.
You'll spend the whole
gifts.
day.
All right. Well,
I'm not spending the whole day.
I know.
I get to go see Doctor Strange with my mom.
nice. All right. Well, we'll wrap this up. We'll set up another time. Jessica, Kyle, let us know when you finish watching episode 3. We'll of Under the Banner Heaven. Maybe we'll, if it's okay with you guys, schedule another time where we just talk about that episode, because there's like I think there's a
lot.
It's a lot there. It's going to be fun.
Oh,
okay. Thanks everybody, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
You guys, thanks for having me on.